Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily, where every day we look at what's going on in the world and try to make some sense of it. I am David Rothkopf, and I'm joined by Riley Fessler and Minna Stein, who typically understand what's going on better than I do. How are you guys doing this morning?
I am dazed and confused.
Dazed and confused.
I'm hanging in there.
Well, okay. Well, why don't you kick us off with story number one?
The U.S. Congress, after months of advocacy by survivors, overwhelmingly passed the Epstein Transparency Act to compel the Justice Department to release investigation files on Jeffrey Epstein. The bill passed the House 427 to 1. I would not want to be that lone vote, but that's just me. And was fast-tracked.
Well, he does appear to be a complete nut job, so
yeah.
Shout out to one.
And was fast-tracked unanimously by the Senate. This legislative action follows an abrupt change in position by President Trump, who previously opposed releasing the information but has now promised to sign the bill into law. As a reminder, he could have just released it without any of this ceremony, but another story. Maybe we'll get into that, David. Once signed, the Justice Department has 30 days to release the files related to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, though the Attorney General may withhold information that risks underage victims or ongoing investigations.
Yeah, and of course, they started some ongoing investigations and they can define what's an ongoing investigation. And so while this is a triumph for the survivors, and I think it's a good thing for the United States because more transparency is better, whether it's going to end up producing more transparency is another matter because Trump, they employed 1,000 people to go through the files to look for Trump's name earlier in the year. They're doing everything they can to sanitize these things before they get out. So when they release things, will they be complete? Probably not. Will they have lots of parts redacted? Yeah, probably they will. Will there be pieces of evidence that disappear mysteriously? Yeah, my guess is there will. Will there be hearings, into the next 5 years about what happened to the missing pieces of evidence? Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen. So if you think this is all resolved, it's not all resolved. And it goes back to Riley's point. If the president had actually wanted to share this stuff, he could have. And for months now. And he did in other cases. He released the JFK files. He released the Martin Luther King files. I think he was going to release the, are there aliens in outer space files? But I don't know if he actually did that. But he's doing this kind of thing. It's just not with this. And you could also tell that this process has really got him bugged. Because, in the past 2 days, two different reporters, both women, have asked him questions about it. And in one instance on Air Force One, he called the woman Piggy. I mean, just a disgusting display, the kind of thing you never would expect, even from the roughest, nastiest kind of political figure. And then the next day at the event that was held for Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, a reporter asked about I guess she was asking about the Khashoggi case, and Trump blew up at her, and said she was a terrible reporter and ABC was terrible and so forth. And my point is, he's losing his cool. Something is bugging him, and I think it's this.
Lawyers for former FBI Director James Comey are asking a federal judge to dismiss his indictment, arguing it is politically motivated prosecution driven by President Trump's personal animus and demands for retaliation. Prosecutors deny vindictiveness, but the case has been shaken by a magistrate judge's finding that the lead prosecutor committed, quote, profound investigative missteps, including misstating the law and possibly failing to present the full indictment to the grand jury. The judge has ordered further review of grand jury recordings as Comey's defense challenges the legitimacy of the case ahead of a trial set for January 5th.
Yeah, I'm going to get to this in a second, but I was just, sort of looking at the screen here. And on the prior case, somebody asked just now, Attorney General Bondi, on the Epstein files, does the new investigation, which they started by the Southern District of New York, prevent the DOJ from releasing all of the remaining files? And Bondi's response was, we'll continue to follow the law. Well, you know what that means, folks. They're they're not going to step up on this. Meanwhile, even as Minez reading this out, another dimension of this has come to light, which is that Lindsay Halligan, the unqualified insurance lawyer who was made the acting U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, when she presented this to the grand jury in rapid fashion, because um, uh, uh, the the case would have effectively expired within a couple of days had she not done so. Um, Apparently, did not show the grand jury the final indictment, which they're entitled to see. And I've seen some people already on social media suggesting that this is yet another grounds by which this case may be dismissed. And the the point of that is, if it's dismissed or she's disqualified, we're now past the statute of limitations, and so they wouldn't be able to bring this case again. And I think that's what Comey is counting on. I think that's what Letitia James is counting on. And I think that's what's going to happen. It looks like this was just, the legal term is shit show from start to finish.
During a White House visit by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, U.S. President Trump vehemently defended him against U.S. intelligence assessments, stating that the Crown Prince, quote, knew nothing about the 2018 killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The meeting highlighted strengthening U.S.-Saudi ties, with Trump designating Saudi Arabia as a major non-NATO ally and announcing significant agreements on arms sales, including the future sale of F-35 jets and civil nuclear cooperation. Despite the focus on the Khashoggi controversy and human rights concerns, the two leaders also discussed Saudi Arabia's potential for normalizing ties with Israel, and the Crown Prince boosted his country's U.S. investment pledge. Khashoggi's widow, however, publicly rebuked Trump's defense, expressing her wish that the presidency would meet her to understand the, quote, real Jamal.
It's hard every day to cover this person and not sort of lose it, and it's hard to, be forced to assess on a regular basis whether hyperbole is warranted. But this was one of the ugliest incidents I've ever seen. The President of the United States essentially said he didn't believe the intelligence community, which concluded that the Crown Prince ordered the killing, and that there was some culpability on the part of Khashoggi for getting himself killed. He said he was an unpopular person. And then he said things happen. I mean, this is what you would expect a mob boss to say. Sorry to hear about your friend, but things happen. It was completely outrageous for a human being to say this, much less a president talking about somebody who was a writer for the main newspaper in the capital city of the United States, who was also a resident of the United States. But essentially, Trump's message was clear. He doesn't care. He's going to embrace this guy, even if the conclusion of the intelligence community was that he murdered somebody in cold blood, murdered him in the most brutal possible way, dismembering his body while he was still alive, cutting him up, and has never accepted responsibility for this. And even in this trip, he said, it was a terrible accident. We're working hard to make sure this doesn't happen again. It's appalling. It's nauseating. It's a clear message to the world that this government has no moral bearings at all. That it is purely transactional, purely about this president and how he sees himself benefiting. I should add up, by the way, in the same press conference, this woman reporter he blew up said, "What about your family's ties to the Saudis?" And he said, "Well, I have no ties to my family's business." Now, this is, I mean, what is he, how stupid does he think the American people are? Everybody knows this is his business. His kids are running it now. They're doing all these deals with the people he's doing international deals with. They're all getting rich from it. And that includes him. And yet, this is our daily life in this country right now. But I have to say, I found it nauseating, and honestly, I'm kind of hard to nauseate these days.
The Department of Education announced it will shift 6 major offices to other federal agencies as part of the Trump administration's ongoing effort to demonstrate the department is unnecessary and ultimately eliminate it. Officials say the changes, framed as co-management, will streamline services and reduce the department's size, though critics argue the move is unlawful and will harm students by scattering essential education functions. The plan follows significant staff cuts and faces strong opposition from unions and education advocates who warn it abandons federal responsibility for supporting schools and protecting students' rights.
You think we're going to end up with better education in the United States by eliminating the education department? Do you think it sends a good message? Do you think that's actually their intention when they say, "Oh yeah, no, we're going to give it back to the states. They'll do a good job." When they eliminate vast numbers of functions that actually help assist states in providing service to people. This is going to hurt individual students. It's going to especially hurt disabled students and others who depend on government programs. It is very destructive for the United States at an inflection point in world history, where better education is the priority of every other country on the planet Earth, that we are choosing stupid because there are a bunch of people running our government who think that the less educated the electorate is, the more likely they are to vote for them. But I think better. I think better of the American people. I think they realize that this attack on our education system is an attack on them directly and an attack on their chances of being upwardly mobile, of seizing opportunities, of reaching what we once called the American dream. It's shameful. And the fact that, somehow somebody in the White House thought, oh, what we can do to distract from the president's involvement in the biggest sex scandal in American history? Why don't we eliminate the education department? That'll be a good distraction. Or let's have ICE pick people up in North Carolina. That'll be a good distraction. I mean, their distractions are what would be other administration scandals. That's where we are.
Newly released data showed President Trump's tariffs, which went into effect on August 7th, led to a sharp drop in U.S. trade in August, with imports of goods and services falling by 5.1%. The decline in imports caused by U.S. trade deficit in goods and services for the month to decrease nearly 24% compared with July. Economists attribute this sharp volatility to U.S. firms clamping down on purchases after months of stockpiling ahead of the tariff deadlines. While the deficit briefly fell, the longer-term effect involves businesses running out of pre-tariff inventory and beginning to pass the increased costs on to American consumers.
What does it mean? Prices are going to go up. But prices were going up, you say. Yes, they're going to go up more. Why? Because adding a cost on top of everything that comes from anywhere else in the world in a global economy means that everything is going to cost more. And the things that aren't made overseas, that compete with the things that are made overseas, they're going to raise the prices too because the other prices are going up. So prices are going to go up. But simultaneous to all of this, a study came out just yesterday that said that the cost of the tariffs to the United States was double, at least, the revenue that is being derived from the tariffs. In other words, it's a net loser for the United States by a lot. It is not good for consumers. It is not good for businesses. It is not good for our overseas partners. It is not good for the global economy. It is not good for the United States of America. There is nothing good about these tariffs. They are economic malpractice of a sort we have never seen in the United States. And it touches everybody. And every American, pick a place, the most remote place you can think of in the United States, is feeling this, and they know why. And Trump can lie his ass off, and he can offer to give, well, we'll give some of this money to people next year, right before the election. That's pretty transparent. Except where is that money coming from? We don't know. A lot of the money that's come in from these tariffs, by the way, may not be the government's money because the tariffs are illegal. They may have to give it back, which will cause further disruptions and weaken the dollar. It's a mess. It's a mess. We've never seen anything like this before. But I should point out, every single credible trade analyst, Democrats and Republicans, said this was a terrible idea. Everyone. The only ones to support this were crackpots. And, that's what happens. Don't listen to the people who know what they're talking about. And I say this as a former trade official, so, maybe I'm a little biased towards that kind of expertise. But listen to the lunatics like Peter Navarro and so forth, and whoever it was at Mar-a-Lago sitting by the pool who said to Trump, William McKinley had tariffs, and that was the Gilded Age. Why don't you do that? And Trump's like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Why the Wharton School has not revoked Trump's degree, which is a permanent stain on their ability to teach economics and business, I do not know. They should have a public ceremony, announce his grades, set them on fire, and say it is as if he never went here. We're undoing the degree, because he didn't learn anything there. That's for sure. Anyway, here's another day. We'll talk about some of this on our upcoming Deep State Radio podcast, the one we've been doing, since the dinosaurs were around. And we'll talk about more of these things tomorrow on Words Matter and on all the other podcasts that are going on here. So, watch them on YouTube, watch them on Instagram, watch them on TikTok, listen to them where you get your podcasts. And if you like them, like them. If you can subscribe. If you want to help support us, go to the dsrnetwork.com and look up or click on membership. It's a few bucks a month. It helps us get by. We really appreciate it. I know it's annoying to hear this every day, but we really want to build up our base of subscribers so that we can be there for you through the next few years, which are going to be extremely consequential and will require all of us to have access to expert views and the truth, which is what we try to offer here. Anyway, for now, thanks Riley, thanks Mida, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.